Hello viewers and welcome back to another tutorial. This is a follow-up video where I show how to make this baby hat that ties around the face on the front. This is a follow-up project to the baptism outfit I made for my newborn girl. So if you'd like to see how I put this piece together, make sure to keep on watching. A list of materials and measurements are going to be in the video description down below. I'm going to be working with the following materials to make this hat. The first is this white lace fabric. You really don't need a lot for this project. You don't even need up to half a meter, so any smaller cut-offs or fabric scraps would work. And to layer underneath that, I'm going to be using a white satin lining so it covers the transparent sides of the lace. To create the ribbon as well as finish off some of the edges around the bottom, I have some cotton, and then I have this lace trim that is going to sit around the front edge of the hat. There are two major measurements I use, which is around the face and then the head width from the front to the back, and I measured that on my child and used that to create the sewing patterns, which I then cut onto fabric for this piece. With those measurements noted and taken down, I'm going to use them to create the sewing patterns and then cut the lace as well as the satin. The first thing I'm going to do is divide the front to back head measurement by 2, and once I have that measurement divided, that is going to help me create a circular piece that would sit on the back that I'm going to gather into the straight band piece that wraps around her face. So this hat has 3 sections. Now let's divide that front to back head measurement. Mine was 7 inches. That divided by 2 is 3.5, and I have this piece of paper which I folded on 2 edges, and I'm going to mark half of that measurement from the bottom corner towards the top and side edges. And once I have that 3.5 inches marked, I'm going to connect them together to make a quarter circle shape. By the time I make that shape on this one side and cut along that shape, it will give me a full circle shape that I would now use to cut my lace and my satin. This is kind of the same way you would make the waistline of a circle skirt when you have your radius figured out, but in this case I'm using the main circular piece in the middle. So this is the first piece I'm going to be working with, but on the bottom edge where the back of the hat is going to be, I'm looking for a width of 4.5 inches because I want that edge to be somewhat straight. That is going to be the back of the hat. Once I have that 4.5 inch marked, I'm going to refine those dashed lines. And then I'm going to be adding some extra paper to the bottom so it allows me to add some seam allowance there. This is going to be the part where the tunnel is, which is why I'm folding it along the line I drew earlier on, and I'm just trimming off the excess along the side of the circular shape so the entire base is fully covered. I'm going to add even more paper to that bottom region there. Just add some sellotape to secure it before going in to add a 2 centimeter or roughly half an inch hem allowance in this case, because that's going to be the back of the hat. I'm going to trim off the excess paper on this side, and that concludes this particular pattern piece. The curved edges of this circular piece are going to be gathered into the long rectangular piece that sits on the front side of the hat. This I'm going to be cutting one of the lace and then one of the satin, so the satin acts as a lining for the hat piece. The next piece I'm going to be working on is the straight band that goes across the front edge of the hat, and this is essentially a rectangular piece. So I'm starting off with a long straight line like so, and the length of the line is going to be the around face measurements. So when I measured around her face, I'm going to be adding some ease and then some seam allowance to that. I'm going to mark that dimension across the long line I drew earlier on, and this I'm just squaring across both top and bottom edges, as well as going ahead to mark the width of this rectangular piece. I'm deciding on 4.5 inches that has seam allowance included as well, so that is about half of that front to back head measurement plus then seam allowance. So I'm going to connect both points together, and it's essentially just a rectangular piece that's going to go from one side of the face to the other side and then connect to the gathered circular piece on the back. I'm adding my annotations, grain lines, and for this I will cut one piece of the lace and then one piece of the satin lining. So those are the main pattern pieces. I'm just going to go ahead and cut onto my fabric so I can crack on with actually stitching this thing together. I have the satin as well as the lace pieces cut and pinned together so I can go ahead and start joining everything. And I'm going to do a basting stitch first, which is essentially a stitch that I'm just going to do to join both layers so they can kind of act as one. And I'm doing this for the round circular piece that sits on the back of the hat first. Once I have the basting stitch stitched around it, this has to be gathered into the long rectangular piece. So I'm going to go back onto the circular edges, and the way I love to do my gathers, if you've watched me long enough on this channel, is I adjust my machine setting to the loosest or the longest stitch and essentially sew around the edge that I want to gather. And once I'm done doing that, I pull the thread. Now I'm repeating the basting stitch on the rectangular piece as well, so it becomes one unit ready to be connected to the circular piece that sits on the back of the hat. Pulling the threads on this particular piece, I'm going to go ahead and gather it in place, and because the circular edges on this side is a lot wider than the length of the rectangular piece, some gathers would come in like so, and this I'm going to be connecting on one side of this long straight rectangular piece. It doesn't matter which side, both sides are essentially the same dimension. So this I'm just pinning in place, and I'm going to evenly distribute the gathers so it makes for a nice rounded detail that goes on the back of the hat, and that is kind of what makes the back look very cute, and it makes for a more comfortable fit since it cups around the back of the head of the baby or the child. So once that is pinned in place, I'm going to take it to my machine and connect both pieces together, joining the gathered circular piece to the straight rectangular piece. And after joining it, you can either go in with either an overlock stitch, a zigzag stitch, or use bias tape to secure and finish it in place before going ahead to stitch the lace trim to the other side or the free side of the rectangular piece. This is the side that sits towards the front of the hat, and I think this detail is what makes this hat really, really cute. After stitching right sides together of the lace trim to the hat, I just went ahead to turn it the other way and then do a top stitch to keep the lace trim pointing outwards and standing the way I want it to. So this is what the hat is looking like so far. It's coming together really, really nicely. I'm happy with the result. Now I'm going to go ahead and finish the bottom edges, and what I did off camera was I just cut a long strip with the cotton fabric, and this I'm going to be using kind of like a bias tape. So I'm going to be sewing it in 2 steps. The first step, with the edges of the cotton strip folded, I'm going to just essentially sew it along the entire base, so that helps me to finish that base and then create the tunnel that I'm going to be passing the ribbon through. So this I'm going to take to my machine, and I'm going to be sewing on a 1 centimeter seam allowance, using that as a bias tape in this case. And once I'm done stitching it on this side, I'm then going to go back in and essentially roll this cotton strip that I've stitched in. I'm going to roll it twice, once very slim and then another one against the hat on the wrong side. So once I stitch that, leaving enough room in the middle, I have a tunnel that I'm going to create for my ribbon. This is what the hat is looking like so far. Edges are nicely finished. Everything is looking really, really cute, and I am happy with the outcome. Like I said, it's a very simple project, and this is actually a hat style that if you're someone who does costumes for a particular era in fashion, I know this is something that you can obviously modify this for an adult, even though I'm making this for a baby. I'm just going in here, I'm passing the ribbon through the tunnel I've made. I've just attached a safety pin to one side of the ribbon so I can work my way through to the other side. Then I'm going to remove the safety pin and just adjust the base of the hat. So I gathered it inwards a little bit so it makes for a snug fit around the neck, but you want to have it a little bit loose so you can actually breathe, or the child can breathe while they have this piece on. Else it can become uncomfortable very quick. You could also use a ribbon, like a satin ribbon or a contrasting fabric if you wanted, but this is a hat all done. It came out so cute and so adorable. My baby looked so cute in this piece in combination with the dress. She found it quite hot, so we just had it on for a moment and then afterwards we took it off. But for photos, for the day, it made for a very, very beautiful outfit. I hope you guys enjoyed watching this video. If you did, give this video a thumbs up. Until my next one, have a good morning, afternoon and evening wherever